Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, once said, "History is one long processional of crazy ideas." The things I loved most, books, sports, democracy, and free enterprise, started as crazy ideas. Now, let's face it, entrepreneurs are usually known for having a ton of ideas. They're idea-making machines. And it might be tempting as a small business owner who's looking to grow to try all these ideas. That infamous shiny object syndrome. It's like, ooh, this is exciting. Let's try it. Oh, now this is exciting. Let's try that. So, what quick framework could you use to begin evaluating whether you should explore pursuing your latest quote unquote crazy idea? Well, the very first thing to consider is there a market for it? Are there people with access to money who will be willing to part with their hard-earned cash for what you're offering? Because if you're targeting a group that can't afford what you're offering, that's problematic. Now, of course, if it's something that you're doing because you want to add some almost like nonprofit offerings to your organizations, let's say you want to embrace more B Corp type values and you're trying to encourage groups that are struggling, let's say, and you're trying to help them elevate themselves or elevate their skills or something like that, that's a whole other story. Then, of course, you would evaluate that differently. I'm just talking about if you're looking to add profitable offerings to your existing business because you want it to grow. So that's the context that I'm talking about here. So in that context, you really want to make sure that whoever you're targeting is able and willing to pay for this offering. Now, before you go and dismiss all the ideas or your idea super quickly, really dig into it, because even if somebody's willing to pay for it because they're looking for hobbies, that is also a potential. So don't quickly dismiss it. And I actually have a really great example. I personally know this artist, really great artist in the Denver area, who recently added an offering to her small business, and it's painting murals. And so on the surface, one may be tempted to think, who's going to pay for that? There's a huge market for it, whether it's personal, so people who want to decorate their backyard a little bit, or somebody who wants to do something in their child's room, the nursery, something like that, to businesses such as vacation rental owners, because they want to have their properties stand out from the competition. So what better way to have these beautiful murals that showcase the area that is being rented in? And so, like I said, on the surface, you're like, who's going to pay for that? But no, when you dig into it, the market is absolutely there. And a lot of them are absolutely willing to pay for the quality of the work because it's going to help their business as well. So think about that kind of win-win, I'm going to say. And again, it could be hobbies as well. People are looking for hobbies and they need to learn how to do things. So consider that as well. Another important aspect of this whole evaluating whether there's a market is it trending upward or downward? Like, are people looking to buy more of these things or fewer of these things? And I'm sure there's a niche market for this. So the example I'm going to give, I'm sure somebody's going to say, yes, but there's a niche market for it. Okay, yes. And that can be part of the thinking process as well. But let's say if you're looking at selling DVDs, well, personally, I would say, yeah, well, it's definitely trending downward because streaming has been on the upward for a long time. And as we know, Netflix made that amazing transition, which was quite impressive, to the DVD rental company to streaming company. It's a nice pivot. But if you're thinking, no, well, I just want to cater to this niche group, like, okay, but you really still have to dig into whether that niche group is truly dedicated. Will they continue? Like, I know that vinyl, there's a niche audience that are absolutely into vinyl. Great. But you really need to know whether this is something that is going to stay within a smaller scale, or whether it's something that can potentially scale larger. I mean, we are talking about a small business that's looking to grow in ad services. So just make sure that you know the size of it, what kind of revenue it can potentially bring in, whether that audience is growing or reducing. So really consider that aspect of it. Another important item to evaluate in this potentially quote unquote crazy idea is, does it make sense for your business? Like, does it complement your current offerings? Or is it simply going to confuse your audience? Is it something that your audience is going to go, I don't get it. What are you doing? This actually reminds me of a TV show I saw a while ago where I think it was Daisy's Fine Catering and Bait and Tackle Shop or something like that. And so to me, it's like, no, that's really confusing. And do you really want those two things happening in the same space? Yeah, I don't know. So even though that's an example from a TV show, I just be aware that maybe the offering doesn't make sense. And the hard part here is, as an entrepreneur, you're usually very excited about your new idea. And so the temptation is to rationalize that, of course, it makes sense. So to avoid that, get some perspective. Consult others on the team. And when I say consult others on the team, keep an open mind. Be prepared to hear what you don't want to hear, that it really doesn't fit in with the current offerings. So ask some team members with an open mind. And also, if you have clients that are very close to you, that's an opportunity to almost kind of test the idea, like approach the client that you're very close to and get their opinions. Like, hey, I'm considering offering this thing. What do you think, generally speaking, like as a client, how do you feel about that type of offering? If they look at you going, I don't get it. Are you still going to offer it within the same company? Then that's kind of a clue that it's not so much a good fit. And that's the thing about when it's not a good fit, like, don't force it because it's a cool idea. If you really must pursue it, because you're really thinking, no, this thing could really take off, consider separating it from your main offerings. Like maybe even launch a separate LLC and do it under there or something of the sort, to avoid potentially negatively impacting your existing business. And there are a few ways in confusing your message where the audience won't really know what you're doing, which could be problematic in attracting new business, but also from I'm going to say spending. So I was going to say investing, but from a spending perspective, because if it really doesn't fit in, then maybe, and it doesn't work out, then maybe it's going to be a drain on your organization. It's really not an investment, and it's really just spending money, as I've talked about in a different video. So be aware of that. Be aware that there's a risk there. And so if you really, really think it's a great idea, just maybe separate it to avoid negatively impacting. Now, another aspect in this evaluation process, just initial quick evaluation process, think about whether you really want to do it. Because even though something is a great idea, it doesn't mean that it should be done by you or your business. So take a moment to imagine yourself accomplishing this new offering. How does that make you feel? Are you like, yeah, doing this all day long, I would be excited, this sounds awesome? Or is it like, well, it's a really great idea, so I should? So when you're thinking about this, imagine yourself implementing it and imagine how this will impact you from a physical and mental point of view. And that complements the other one in the sense that it's not just, do you want to do it? Is it exciting? But also, is it going to be draining? In the sense that, is it going to be too much? Is it realistic that you can take on this additional amazing thing? And are you ready to put in what's necessary? Are you ready to put in the effort, the physical energy, the mental effort? Or is this something that's going to pull you away from the things that you value the most? Are you going to suddenly, for example, no longer have time to volunteer, and this is something that brings you a lot of joy? Are you going to no longer have weekends with your family? And also evaluate whether this is going to be temporary or long-term. Because if it's just the thing, yeah, I just need to do a big push, it's short-term and I'll get to the other side, that's fine. And I'm willing to do it, that's fine. But if it's something that you don't see how you're going to get to the point where you're no longer going to be involved in it all the time, then that's something to consider, because there will be trade-offs there. So, and also if it's something that, let's say, if you need to invest a lot in it, because we'll say it's a great idea and that it's an investment at this point, but if it's an investment, is it something that you really can afford, or is it something that's going to keep you up at night? Because if it takes time to ramp up and you've invested all this money, is it going to bring down your business? And are you going to be in a position where your cash flow is crunched or you're no longer profitable? So really take the time to evaluate those things to see whether that's the kind of thing that's going to keep you up at night, which is not good. And even, let's say you've went through all these things and you're like, this is such a great money-making venture. Like I would be so upset if I saw somebody else offering this and I didn't do it. Okay. Will it leave you miserable? Will growing this aspect of your business make you feel trapped? That's part of, the time and how do you feel offering it. Really consider whether growing it in this aspect will make you feel trapped. And if that is the case, if it really is that great money-making venture, look at other options. Consider simply being an investor. Maybe that's all you do with it. You invest. Maybe you collaborate with someone who actually wants to do this thing. And maybe you work with them as a consultant. Maybe you work with them as a part owner. Maybe you create a board and you're on that board to help guide the idea, but you receive dividends off the profits. So those are all options to consider. I will say that all these things, you're still like, no, that idea is still amazing. I need to do it. And it passes all those things. Then once you've satisfied yourself that you have all those elements, and it seems like this new idea is the next great growth move for your business, then make sure, of course, to perform an in-depth SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Make sure that the product or service is clearly defined, your audience is targeted, your marketing plan is solid, your financials support this, and then go and find out whether this innovation that others might consider crazy, go see if it fails, or maybe it launches a new Nike.